Howdy and welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. I'm Jerry Snyder. As an elite level athlete, owner of All In Health and Wellness, and author of the book Confidence Through Health, my goal is to help you achieve your goals and dreams using health as the conduit to get there. I want to say thank you to Social Media Cowboys for sponsoring this week's episode of the Confidence Through Health podcast. If you need help with a website, if you need social media needs for your business, if you need help with AdWords, SEO, all those things that you know you should be doing but you are too busy to do or you're too confused about, they are the experts that you need in your corner. If you're interested in launching a podcast such as mine, they help me edit my podcast and do a fantastic job making sure that all of the technical side of it is handled and we launch a nice, neat, edited podcast episode each week. So I want to thank Social Media Cowboys for their continued sponsorship of the Confidence Through Health podcast. You can find them at socialmediacowboys.com, or you can find them as well with other sponsors at confidencethroughhealth.com. Howdy and welcome back to the Confidence Through Health podcast. It's your host, Jerry Snyder. In this episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing Ferenc Elekes. He is the operator of overlandsite.com. And basically what that is his journaling and his talking about in his lifestyle of overlanding. We talk about what that is and how there's some health benefits from that type of lifestyle versus what but both he left behind and what most of us live in a day-to-day in the Western world. And we talked about the benefits of seeing different countries, different parts of different countries, different, maybe not normally traveled areas, and how that can be beneficial to his personal, like physical health, but also his mental health and stress relief. And I found it fascinating when I first learned about it, that overlanding is not necessarily I guess it can be short trips, but typically these are much longer trips. And he talks about that and how far he's traveled, what his goals are as far as the future. And I think it was very interesting. And it helped me understand that, you know, there's not always the set way that you have to do things. There's other options. I know society wants to tell us that we have to live a certain lifestyle in a certain way, especially if we're in the Western world. And there's so many options and so many variances and so many different ways to do things and still have a happy life, an enjoyable life, and a healthy life. And Ferenc talks about that and talks about how we can get started in it if it's something that's intriguing to us. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation I had with him, and I was sure enlightened by it myself. All right, so I want to welcome Ferenc to the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me, Jerry.
So for those of y'all watching or listening, the disclaimer, he is in Hungary and I am in Texas. So there could be a little bit of technical difficulty just as we're halfway across the world. But bear with us if we cut out in and out as we go through this. But, first off, I was intrigued when I was introduced to you through your overlanding site and just what it is that you do and how you've sort of separated from the traditional, what society says you're supposed to do with your life, corporate world, corporate chain, all of those types of things. So tell us a little bit about what you did before, but then why you decided to make this big change in your life.
Sure. So first of all, as you mentioned, my website, Overland site. So basically what we're doing right now is trying to do very long trips with our overland truck, which is just a simple, it's a simple Toyota truck with a rooftop tent. And we're doing month-long trips at a time, 6 months long, 3 months long. We've done several of those before. And of course, now being 2021, we've been stuck for 12 months, but otherwise we're trying to do this full time. But obviously we had to do a lot of work before that. And
yeah.
Me personally, I was working in the corporate world for 15 years. And as much as I'm quite happy that I left that world, it also gave me a bit of a background to be able to quit. So obviously I could save some money, I could build up some knowledge, I could, have the kind of stability in my life that provided me with the opportunity to actually quit it eventually.
Right.
So and as much as I'm happy not to be in that world anymore, it gave me the opportunity to be free right now. So I think, and the same goes for Evelyn. She's much younger than me, but she also had a few years working in mid-sized companies, and then when we met, apparently this was the only thing I was talking about, like doing long trips, overland trips and stuff. So when we eventually decided to go on the first trip, and then we finished the first longer trip, when she started to apply for jobs again, I just asked her to have the kind of job when it allows her to work remotely, work online. So now we both do that, and we're just free, apart from obviously the current situation, but otherwise we're free to travel.
And so these aren't trips of just like 6 months down the road to the nearest lake and you're just sitting there hanging out at the lake. You're going on like miles and miles, kilometers. You're like these long distance trips, right?
That's correct. Yes. So far we've done trips on 3 continents.
Wow.
Like the longest one was driving from Europe to Singapore, which took us 6 months, and it was about 35,000 miles.
Wow.
And it was a trip of a lifetime, but it's just so far. Like, I hope we're gonna do bigger ones. One of the plans is to drive from Alaska to Argentina, so do the Pan American Highway sometime in the near future. We've also done trips in Africa, driving from Budapest, Hungary, where we are now, all the way down to Gambia and back, obviously, through the Sahara Desert. And of course, we've done trips around Europe multiple weeks at a time.
Right.
And my very first longer trip was actually in the US on the East Coast, traveling on the East Coast back like more than 15 years ago.
Okay. So what about this type of lifestyle that like what grabbed you and said this is something I want to try out?
One of them is definitely the freedom. So one aspect is you just have that kind of feeling when like you wake up in the morning at a ride camp in the bush somewhere, and then you don't know where you're going to spend the following night. You don't know where you're going to spend the next week. Maybe you have a rough idea which way you're going, where you're headed, but how and where you're going to stop, where you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep is just however the days, unfold.
Just how it shakes out, right?
That's a great feeling, to be honest. Yeah. So that's what attracted me to it. Like, there was a trip that I'd done with a couple of friends of mine, driving from London to Mongolia back in 2014, and that's what gave me the kind of I don't know. That's what again and again. So
yeah. So and it has obviously been difficult over the past year with all the restrictions and everything. So how has
we had to cancel a few trips.
Yeah. So how is from a health perspective on your mental health, your emotional health? I imagine the freedom is very liberating and very stress-free to a point, but is there a different stress that comes involved in this kind of life versus, the corporate world where maybe you have more stability from I know where I'm going to be from day to day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You meet, you kind of, you are thrown different problems at you. Life throws different problems at you. Maybe you're not going to worry about a deadline, but you were, not a traditional type of deadline, but maybe you have like when we were crossing through China, you need different permits and those permits expire. So we had a kind of deadline, for example, that we had to make it to the border and cross into China and then go through China within a certain period of time. And that's a stress as well that you have to overcome. because we had difficulties on the road to get to China, which meant we were stressing about, are we going to make it? Is our truck going to have any problems that need to be fixed to make sure we get to the border and stuff like that? And as it turned out, we did have issues with the truck right at the border, just before the border, crossing from Mongolia into China, and it was pretty stressful because it was a big problem with our transmission, with our starter motor. I don't want to go into those kind of details, but you do have stress with more like border crossings, or for example, obviously we travel as a couple, but we travel alone. We don't travel in a convoy or something.
Right.
Every now and then, yes. Every now and then, when we meet other overlanders and we're happy to share the campsite, we're happy to share a few stories and travel together. Yes, but 80-90% of the time we travel alone. And being a couple, obviously, I'm the guy, she is the girl. I need to protect her if there is a danger or something like that. At least that's inevitable. If there is an issue, obviously I'm going to have to stand up for ourselves and resolve it and stuff. And that is actually more important in terms of deciding where we don't like the traditional campsites where you have all the facilities and all the, like a traditional campsite with other campers and everything. We love staying away from everybody and just spend the night in nature, up on top of a mountain or a nice valley just by the river, those kind of places. But that also means you're alone. And I think the only danger is humans. Like, I'm not afraid of, nature itself and stuff. I'm not afraid of lions and wolves and stuff, because unfortunately it's very rare to meet those kind of dangers today. But humans can be dangerous, I think. But with that kind of mindset, you become very careful. And then I can tell you countless of examples when we met the kindest people in the world in the most remote places in different villages where we didn't even speak each other's language. And then you meet a total strangers. Our camp is set up. He's never seen a foreigner. And then we just have the kind of sign language conversation. And it just, I have countless of really, really nice, positive stories like that.
Right. That's cool. Yeah. And I have seen, looking through your website and some of your blog posts and stuff, and some of the interesting issues you had as far as traveling and getting stuck in the sand and things like that I imagine you have to, that brings a different stress of like, oh, I wasn't expecting this situation and, never come across this. How do I fix this? How do I get out of this? And yeah, if you have a deadline,
that's right.
I can imagine different countries handle things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And so different borders, it also depends on who is working at a different border. Mm-hmm. Like obviously the border like between a bit stressful also because those are usually small or not major borders, but between two small cities, between two countries somewhere in middle of Central Asia. And it's because we stand out as travelers in a way that we are not Russian, we are not Kazakh, we are from 10,000 miles away. We look more interesting. So obviously the border guards look into us a little bit more, and they look through all of our documents. They, like, for example, at the Russian border, they look through all of our first aid kits because they were looking for any kind of medicational drugs that could be illegal in Russia and things like that. And being prepared always helps. So to get back onto your original question, how does this affect our health and how does it, how do we negotiate through all of this from our health perspective? Mm-hmm. If we try to prepare for stressful situations, like for example, we actually looked into what kind of drugs are legal in Russia. We were not stressed because he went through our first aid kits and our medical bag. So, but we heard stories of other overlanders that they had to explain some kind of painkiller or some kind of other drug that was illegal in Russia. It wasn't illegal anywhere else, but it's they had to talk themselves out of it and things like that. So being prepared, is reducing the stress during a trip like this.
Right. So spending that little bit of extra time on research and figuring out what to be prepared for. Which, similar to, taking care of your health just in general, is if you research, where food's coming from and how things are being made before you ingest them, then, you can avoid a lot of toxins and a lot of issues, with your long-term health.
The fact that you mentioned the food, we go through small villages and areas where there are no touristy areas, or not tourist. There's no tourist attractions, at least not major ones. You really have to find, and that's when you find the best ones, like the most beautiful, pristine lakes or national parks and mountains and everything. But you can't walk into a McDonald's and order the usual stuff that you usually eat. Not that we eat a lot of McDonald's, but what I'm saying, that you can't find anything familiar on the menu.
Right.
And every now and then it's unavoidable. You will get some food poisoning over a 6-month period. You cannot avoid it if you're going through small places. We try to cook ourselves where it's possible. We tend to stock up on our supplies in local markets. Fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and occasionally the local meat. But it's you can get unlucky.
So outside of the food poisoning side of it, do you see that there is a difference in the food? Like, is it more does it feel more nutritious? Does it make you feel more alive, if you will?
If you buy the fruits and veg in those local markets, it's absolutely fantastic, because usually they are like what you would pay premium in a Western supermarket as organic,
right?
Because everything else there is organic. They just grow it in the back garden.
Yeah,
and so those are fantastic. What was a different, what was a little bit difficult, like Mongolia. In Mongolia, then there isn't a lot of vegetables that they can grow because of the weather, because of the soil, because it's probably there's a lot of reasons, but they have a lot of animals, more than people, so they have a lot of meat, but there is no fresh vegetables that you can buy, or at least it's very rare to come across fresh vegetables in a local village market or shop. So that was a bit difficult. They deep fry everything. They have a lot of meat. But to have a balanced diet in Mongolia, we found it quite difficult. And we spent a month there. So that's when we actually were living on our supplies that we brought back home, or that we picked up during the trip, until we got there, like, rice or canned fruit, canned vegetables and things like that.
Yeah. So, well, how much can you, like, from a supply standpoint, if you were out in like no villages with anything, like how much can you carry with you? How much supplies can you carry with you? How long does it last?
We could probably last for a week.
Okay.
And also, if we know that, so that's like the normal supply that we usually would have. I think we would have food, water, probably a few days, because obviously the water that we carry, we use it for washing and from washing dishes to washing ourselves and everything else. So we tend to camp next to rivers or lakes and stuff. So if there is anything that we can do with the lake, obviously we're not going to drink the lake water, although we have a water filter, but it's more for emergencies.
Right.
However, we tend to fill up our water canisters and water tanks with drinkable water, potable water, but we're happy to wash dishes with any kind of river water or lake water. And, but to answer your question, so we could last for a week, especially if you have some kind of water next to us. But if we know that we're going to go to some kind of really remote place for a while, then we stock up, so we could probably last even longer.
Right. So to go back to a little bit about the villages and making their own food and all that, or growing their own food, and it's all, much more fresh than it is in the supermarkets that I'm getting here in
usually,
Texas. So do you notice in those local people, do you notice a difference in like, their vibrancy from like maybe the Western world, from like a physical side of things? Did you see any difference?
Yeah, well, the biggest difference that we saw it was the negative side in Mongolia. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people are obese somehow.
Right.
So, unsurprisingly, to be honest, and in the rest of the places that I sort of remember, we went through a huge part of Southeast Asia, and I think Southeast Asian people are healthy in general anyway, because they eat a lot of tropical fruits and vegetables,
Right.
and probably a lot of sunshine, and
Yep.
they work hard, so they look really healthy. Otherwise, when we travel through Central Asian villages, and I think more, I could probably tell the difference between people living in villages and in towns, because all these ex-Soviet towns and Central Asian towns, but I could talk about Africa as well. But people living in villages tend to look healthier than people living in cities.
Yeah.
Probably because of the lifestyle. Like in a typical Kazakh city, Kazakh town, people wouldn't have a good a good healthy lifestyle, because they focus on probably it's polluted, it's very dusty.
Right.
The lifestyle, they focus on a lot of work for very little money, which means they have very little energy for exercises. And I don't want to generalize. Obviously, it's not always like that. But when we went through villages, obviously those are very hardworking people, but they work outside. They work on the fields. They work, with their hands, and they look healthy because they burn off those calories that they eat. So
yeah. No, and
they're probably closer to those kind of the kind of really natural lifestyle that we would call a natural lifestyle.
Right. So to get back to overlanding a little bit, like you mentioned coming across other people doing the same thing. Like, what would your is there an estimate on how many people are living this lifestyle?
Right. I can't give you a number, but when you first start to do it, it seems really special, and it is kind of unique and special. But once you're on the road, you feel like you're meeting new overlanders all the time, and you sort of you meet in forums on different online platforms, because you're discussing routes, discussing border information, you're discussing different trails and places to see, and then a few names, because in those kind of groups or online forums, the same kind of people are looking for the same information, or they're sharing the information. So if, like, for example, if you're trying to look for information in Kazakhstan, you're probably going to meet online the same kind of people that or people that are looking for the same kind of route, which means they're going to be in the area, or they will be, or they were in the area before. So some names start to be familiar, and then eventually in some places you're going to meet them if they travel at the same time. And this happened to us on the road. Like, we met a couple in Georgia, the country, and just south of Russia. Yeah. And then we sort of, so we had like a 10-second conversation, because we went the other way. And then 2 months later, we met in Laos after China. Then it was like 10,000 miles later. Yeah. And then we spent the whole week together camping, and we're still in touch. Like, we're still friends, and we're probably going to meet them when they're back. They're still traveling. They've been traveling for 2.5 years. So the point is, there are more people doing it than you would think. Right. So and with the whole pandemic, this travel style or lifestyle maybe is becoming more popular, because fewer people want to stay in hotels, and a lot of people want to get away from everybody else and spend the time with their friends or family only, rather than in a packed cruise liner or a hotel. Right. Well, and we're also learning from the health perspective, the importance of being in nature and being outside, and and so whether it's a weekend camping or a month, on the road where you're stopping and being outside in nature, in a less traditional campground, I think we're seeing the benefits, not just from the reduction of stress, but also
just the physical health side of it.
Yeah, and because with the activity, it comes with all this kind of, there is a lot of, there are a few activities that comes with it. For example, gathering firewood, building the actual campfire, putting up the tent. So this physical exercise, rather than sitting in front of a computer all day, or, you know, doing the same kind of repetitive work every day.
Right.
Even if somebody gets away for a week or just a weekend, you will do a lot of natural or traditional kind of activities that people today don't do anymore, like chopping wood, you know, cooking together outside, or you know, discovering an area, because we tend to stop somewhere and it's usually next to a lake or river or a mountain or hills or something, and then we set up camp. We probably eat or something, or build a fire or whatever, and then we discover the area. We do little hikes, or we look around and go down to the river. I'm sure, like, we don't do fishing, but a lot of people who are doing this kind of travel lifestyle, they do fishing, they do hunting, or they do whatever that is kind of a very outdoorsy kind of thing.
Right. So are there areas, I know you're in Europe and you've traveled through Asia and all that, are there areas that are like easier on this lifestyle than others? I would imagine China is obviously one of the harder ones. And
in terms of paperwork and preparation and cost. But otherwise, once you're in China, it's very easy. People are very welcoming. It's very, very shockingly developed. I was probably ignorant in terms of expecting China, at least the western part, because we know the East Coast is very developed and the cities are very developed. That's not what we wanted to see. We wanted to see the eastern part with more traditional Chinese villages and towns and stuff. But even that part is massively developed. So it's very easy to travel. But what we're really looking for usually is the trails and the unpaved roads, the where you actually feel that you are remote and you need to kind of get your way through a certain area rather than just, you know, pay a toll road and go for it. We don't want that kind of place. So depends on what you call easy. I mean, the US and Europe is very, very easy for traveling. You have all the facilities. There is a supermarket, there's a restaurant somewhere all the time. Within these areas, of course, you will feel safe that you will have a gas station somewhere around here. You will have services, you have everything. I mean, of course, if we want to ignore crime, because you're not going to go to the worst areas anyway, no matter where you are, then probably the US and Europe are the easiest. But if you're looking for adventure, that's probably not what you want. And a lot of overlanders are looking for adventure. But I see that in two ways. So, for example, you can travel in the south west of the US, where you can see you can travel through the really unattended or very, or how do you
just more open?
Not maintained roads, basically. So off roads and stuff, and probably it would take you a couple of hours or longer to find the next person. So those kind of places are the more adventurous, and you can still find those probably more in the US than in Europe, because Europe is a lot more crowded.
Right.
But I would say probably these are the easiest, because again, with traveling and with overlanding, humans add to the difficulty.
Right.
Or the borders, or the language barrier, or the finding whether you can eat the local food or not, and whether is it legal to camp in a country or not, unless you're going to a proper campsite. These are the difficult parts, but with research online nowadays, everything is possible.
Yeah.
Finding out those kind of information and make it easier on yourself when you cross the border.
Yeah. So, well, I greatly appreciate your time, and I want to be mindful of that. So what what would you say to somebody who's
Yeah,
like,
no problem at all. As long
who's
as
who's thinking about it, like, they're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I've always wanted to do this, like, but they're nervous about, the what ifs. What would you say is
sure.
like, hey, like if you've got this preparation, go for it because you're going to be more prepared than you think you are.
Absolutely, you can start this with no preparation at all, especially if you're just starting within your own country or own continent. But I would say to anybody who's out, whether they like this kind of lifestyle or not, before they can invest, before they would invest any kind of money,
Mm-hmm.
just use that daily driver. Just go for a weekend trip somewhere, camp out there. Obviously,
Right.
the more kit you buy, the more the stuff that you invest into, the more comfortable you can make it, of course.
Right.
But first, you can get away with very little stuff, just like a gas stove and the simple tent,
Right.
and then you're good to go. And then go to like the nearest place where you can do a hike, and then where you can camp at the same time and spend the night there, and then do weekend trips first, and then rather than going for a cruise or going for a 2-week holiday in a holiday park, maybe do 2 weeks camping in the southwest of the US or anywhere in the Rockies or somewhere. And that way, without having spent too much money or without committing yourself to this,
Mm-hmm.
you will find out whether you love this or hate this or maybe in between.
Right.
But if you will love this, then you will find a way to make it a little bit more a bigger part of your life.
Yeah.
In a way that you will find a way to have a 4-week vacation rather than just 2 weeks.
Right.
And then gradually you can do longer and longer if this is for you.
So the person that's hearing that and saying, oh, but financially, how do I do that?
Right.
Because I think a lot of us think, we think about the things that we pay for and the things that we have in our lives. And, but to do an extended trip, and I've gone camping for a long time, and sometimes you go like, wow, that didn't cost near as much as I thought it would.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of money you can save on hotels is incredible. Mm-hmm. Like if you have your own tent and you don't mind sleeping in the bush, and then with everything that comes with it, it costs very little. The biggest part that we spent in the whole kind of overlanding setup is the actual truck and the tent. But most people already have a car. Usually, a lot of people already have an SUV. So throwing a tent inside the truck and a gas stove, it doesn't cost you too much. It's going to cost you much less than vacation in a 5-star hotel, or not even. It doesn't even need to be a 5-star hotel. Right. So starting small and start with a short period of time, and then gradually build up your appetite is how I would advise anybody to start this.
Yeah.
But if anybody's worrying about the cost side, it's not as bad as it would seem.
Yeah.
I would say. And also how to make money. I mean, there's a lot of things that people spend on right now with their regular life. That's one thing. Save that up. Another thing is now, especially with the pandemic, everything got that online work and remote work got a big push.
Right.
Like this was in the pipeline anyway, but everything I think got moved forward 5 years at least in terms of advancement.
Yeah.
So the fact that we can talk here is amazing, like on the other side of the world.
Yep.
And there is a massive amount of opportunities online to work and doing proper work, not just, hey, buy my stuff and then you know, not the kind of multi-level marketing stuff that everybody is telling everybody. It's just proper.
Yeah, there's ways to do things for people all over the world.
Exactly, and the range of work is absolutely massive. You don't need to be a computer developer or a programmer or anything like that.
Right, exactly right. So, well, I greatly appreciate you spending some time with me. How can somebody connect with you if they're interested, maybe want to ask more questions, or maybe just want to follow you along on your trips?
Thank you. So our website is overlandsite.com, as in site, SITE. And there's a lot of information on there about our trips, or about some ways to do stuff, and what we suggest how to do stuff, and just have a look around. We're also on Instagram as Overland Site, and on Facebook as well. But probably start with Instagram and then find us there. You can message me on Instagram, or send us an email through the website.
Awesome. And I'll put those links in the show notes and everything, so that people can easily click on that and connect with you, or just follow you along and see what's going on. So I greatly appreciate you being on. Thanks, Ferenc.
No, thank you very much. This was fun. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for checking out All in Health and Wellness, Confidence Through Health podcast. Our goal is to use health as a conduit to help you reach your goals in life.
A little lighter than me. I'm about to black out. Her grip is getting tighter on me. I think I like it deep inside. I feel the fire in me. She like the milky, see me creaming to the coffee in me. She got soul and sway.